Make a point.
Starting off this week, losing through lit. Fuck it.
You look right out of the 60s, man. You look groovy as hell.
Babe. Yeah. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. It's good to see you. It's been a while. It's been a spell.
It's been a spell. Lots changed in the world.
Really? I haven't really noticed.
Lots changed. A lot's changed. Well, here anyway, it has in the States. Lots changed.
Yeah.
You know, we have a politician who's at the top. Well, he'll soon be at the top. Talking about, things that the current president should have been talking about, like trying to coordinate a federal response to the coronavirus pandemic rather than a hodgepodge, 50 states, 50 different efforts approach.
What's our response to the coronavirus? It's China's fault. Let them deal with it.
Yeah, what's our response? Well, here's the thing. We're of the opinion that the ensuing economic fallout will be far worse than choking on your own amniotic fluid or whatever. You know what I mean?
The froth of your lungs. Yeah.
Yeah, we figure our friends getting more money is worth way more than your grandmother. Fuck, she's already old. It's like, Jesus Christ.
That's why they had that pillow guy, the CEO of a pillow company, come on during one of those asinine coronavirus task force meetings. They're like, you're gonna need pillows, right? Well, this guy, you're gonna be inside a lot, lying down. So, pillow man, come here and talk to us about your thread count.
I get it, because he goes, Jesus is responsible for my success, and I'd like to thank all the cherubim, seraphim and shit, and, and it's like, well, he says the right things, but it's like, of course they're gonna have him on a Republican task force. They're gonna have him on. I'd like to just tell everybody that without Jesus and your support, I wouldn't be here right now.
Hawking pillows from the White House, from the South Lawn,
from Golgotha to your home, and it's interesting that no one's blaming God for this coronavirus stuff, even though God does everything. I never heard anyone say, you know what, God, you really did you have to do this? Did you have to drown my husband in his own lung fluid?
You fucked the pooch on this one, my friend. Yeah.
Fuck the pooch. I always give 10% of what I earn to your fucking organization. Expect a little return on my investment. I'm just.
That's right. We should think about it that way. The 10% I give you, it's an investment. I expect dividends, my friend.
Expect some return.
And what you give me is a plague.
I know. You make me lose my job.
Yeah. I'm calling up the treasury on this one. We're gonna see what's going on up there.
It's New York public schools have just shut down because there's too many coronavirus cases in the citywide system, and this is the largest public school system in the country, United States. It's just interesting. It's just a lot's changed. A lot's getting. It's weird. It's like we not weird. I guess this is normal. Darkest night before dawn kind of idea. We have a president-elect who is at least going to try, right? We have,
at
least try. I mean, Trump is just not. He's still not trying. Anyway,
he's too busy declaring he won. No, it's
too busy facing the White House. Apparently, he's not leaving the White House except to go play golf in Virginia.
I
love it. I just imagine him pouting a lot.
You couldn't imagine a worse dystopian television show, right? Or movie or book. It's just, and it's the perfect one for America, right? A reality, a washed up businessman whose father got the money through. It's what's it called? It's like the modern version of The Great Gatsby, coming into all this money and wealth, and then using all of his privilege, ill-gotten privilege, other than to become the president of the United States, and then treating it like a game show host. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean, he's a good example of some of the kind of people we produce in this country. Pathological, solipsistic,
mm,
thieving perverts who just they get quote unquote ahead in life because they're just willing to eat other people.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they get ahead in life because they're born closer to the finish line than everyone else. If you want to say it's some weird kind of
yes,
race, which the metaphor kind of falls flat on that, but we get the idea, right? Some of us are born closer to, I don't know, the top of the mountain, whatever.
closer
It's
to hundreds of millions.
Yeah, yeah.
Free-
Man, just like the disasters that we're looking at. I've been covering a bunch of the stuff that's going on in South America, and you see the houses that people live in, and compare it to our own lush surroundings, and it's just sometimes it's very easy to forget that a large portion of the world lives in much worse conditions, and they live.
The future is now, right? The future is now. We're the Fed chairman in the United States, Federal Reserve Bank chairman, declared today that we're not going back to the old economy, and what that
Oh,
means is that this old Bretton Woods post-war New Deal kind of socialism and middle class, like what do you call it? The upward mobility of more and more of the population that occurred after World War II in the United States. That era is over. No more employment. Like there's going to be a lot of people who are not only going to be unemployed, but there won't be any work for them at all. They'll be unemployable, and that number is not going to shrink, but it's going to increase rapidly. So this idea that upward mobility will be all, but it'll be greatly reduced, right? And just a smaller and smaller population size. So what's something like will have to change. The future is now. What I mean by that is that there's a reality that is affecting 100 million people, let's say, just round number, and there is no policy in place to help them. And it's like,
yeah.
geez, that's a nauseating position to be in.
Well, I mean, I always thought like going back to the New Deal era might be a positive thing. America's got a crumbling infrastructure. Why don't we put some people to work and update, the roads, update, like we're in the 21st century. We have like electric cars, maybe, and high speed internet, and they're boring tunnels in the ground to shoot cars thousands of miles an hour, right? Like, why can't we?
This Reagan era of deregulating corporations and
Yeah.
increasing the amount of taxation for the extremely wealthy, like basically undoing the New Deal, right? That began to take place in the 80s and which continues apace today.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
Decide,
mistaken
decide
about what
yeah,
you meant by the New Deal. I thought we were talking about after World War II. What was that
that's
called?
the New Deal. The
Oh,
New
okay.
Deal. Basically, the New Deal era was the FDR era. So,
Yeah.
but the policies he instituted, we can broadly construe, the FDR to Reagan just to do it
Right.
as simply as possible. Maybe not as accurately as possible, but certainly as simply as possible.
Mhm.
You can broadly refer to that era as the New Deal era. But strictly speaking, it's just FDR's administration. But
Sure.
anyway, but that this idea that for the last 40 years in this country, roughly, the elements of the the American population that just wants to keep acquiring things, acquiring money, acquiring power, acquiring influence, that the era of the government giving the special attention to them as opposed to socialists and union people and so forth, labor union members or whatever, brothers, whatever they're called. Sorry, in this, it's hard. In other words, it was possible to do it in the 30s because of the Depression, because FDR was so charismatic and powerful, and labor unions had been ascendant for 30 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, we've had Reaganism for 40 years. It's a runaway train.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, we're being told that it's utterly impossible to raise income taxes at the federal. Like, it's just politically impossible. No one's willing to even attempt it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, what? What, by 1%? We're not talking 92. 92% of everything you earn over $200,000. No, it's going to be a plus 1% to whatever ridiculously low rate it is now. It's impossible. Can't happen. Can't raise the tax.
Fucking ridiculous.
Meanwhile, what are you going to do about the 100 million people or whatever who aren't going to have jobs in the next 5 years and can never have them again?
And then on top of that, you're going to have the second industrial revolution, or whatever we're calling it, industrial revolution 2.0, where all these like automation, right? What are you going to do with all the truck drivers? Thousands and thousands of truck drivers, for instance. Yeah, I remember when I was a mover, and we were in the truck one day, and these guys had a lot of bravado, you know, because like they could drive a big rig, and they were making fun of the idea of automating truck drivers. How you're gonna like back it up and blah 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 and all this kind of stuff, and it's just like the hubris, you know. And then it's not really like, I don't mean to poke fun at them and talk about their specific hubris, because like, what are they gonna do? They haven't been gifted the best hand in life, and not that it's bad to be a truck driver, but I'm specifically talking about the guys that are the movers, and it's just like, this is all going to change. What are you going to do when you're going to have a machine pump your gas? Well, it's not going to be gas.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be something, you know.
Have you seen what robots can do? I think pumping gas is going to be like, it'll manage. We just automatically docked a capsule to the space center, and the astronauts, I had to cover it. The astronauts were literally sitting there in their like futuristic Apple spacesuits like this, as the spaceship just went, and we have soft capture. Now hard capture. Everybody cheers. And it's like
the ship did it itself.
It's automatic.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't hear about that. That's pretty cool.
Within millimeters. Like, that's the thing. Like, they shot it to space, and it was a 27-hour like trip, and they're there. They have a cockpit view of them in this Tesla of a vehicle, and they're in their Star Trek outfits that look super white, and they're just sitting there with their.
Oh, is this SpaceX?
Yeah, this is SpaceX. This is the first NASA, Elon Musk trip to the moon. Not trip to the moon, to the Space Center. It's happening.
That's wow. The future is now. That's so cool.
It was super cool. It was super cool. It kind of made me. I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk. He seems kind of like an evil genius in the making.
He's trying to do what Howard Hughes did for America, or Thomas Edison. You know, just extend the boundaries of the possible. Financial asset.
He's trying to do right. Like, that's the nice thing. Like, there's ingenuity. There's like, what has NASA done? It's had its budget slash. And yes, NASA's doing stuff, but
it wants to do everything it can. But there's just no.
That's
like,
what I
no, schools, space program, don't fund those. Give the money to fucking rich and have them fuck kids on private islands. Come on, that's what we're supposed to do with all this large fund our schools and our space program. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? That's not going to get me hush money. That's not going to get me an increase in zeros in my Panamanian bank account. What? No. Space program. We need a once in a generation genius to come over here from South Africa and by hook or by crook monetize his crazy Tesla-like ideas. You know, we have to hope for that. Fuck funding it ourselves. What the fuck? Yeah, right.
And I would be doing a disservice to my country if I didn't mention that he is partially Canadian. So.
South African, stop.
I have to do my job.
Insider from Mandela. Come on. They got
Hey,
Stella.
hey.
And Arnold Vosloo. He's pretty cool too.
Sure.
Arnold Vosloo.
Isn't Jack
Anyway.
Nicholson the golfer, not the actor? Isn't he South African too? Nicholson?
Oh, I don't know. I
think he is.
I don't watch golf. I don't pay much attention
I
to
don't
golf.
know. I got to interview him once when he came on Jeju, but that's all I know. Somebody asked him if he liked kimchi. One of the world's greatest golfers in the world.
Right.
Somebody-
Do you like Jeju tangerines? I have to open up this interview. The one time in my life that I'll talk to someone as amazing as you, I'd like to open up by asking, do you like kimchi jjigae? As you know, our country is very unique. Then I got to go into a little speech to justify this.
Yeah, well, we would do that too. Have you tried our beaver tail? Have you tried maple syrup? Have you tried it's any country that's not
Beaver tail.
America.
What's that one? Have you had it before?
Beaver
Beaver
tail?
tail?
It's not actually beaver. Like, it's a pastry. It's just called beaver tail because it's in the shape of a beaver tail.
Eating a biological paddle. Like, I don't know, or whatever beaver
Those
tails
things
look like.
are awful. Like, I can't imagine eating a beaver tail. That would be a feat. And
You probably eat it in anger if one of those little fuckers ended up building a dam that ended up flooding your fucking basement, knocking your water heater out. You probably cook it and eat it just in rage.
they're huge.
You know,
They're huge animals. They're not small, right? They're not these. And beavers are like fascinating animals. They're like the only other species on the world that like architects its environment like we do. You know,
yeah.
like they
I'm
see a
thinking
dry area and they're like, let's make this wet. Let's get it going.
Kevin McBride is a comedian and comic actor here in America, and he's got this excellent character. I forget the character's name. He starred in the show called Eastbound and Down. Kenny Powers. Sorry, Kenny Powers is his name, and he's just this. He's a very humorous, insensitive personage from the South. I'll put it that way. Anyway, so he kind of used this character in the Grand Theft Auto 5 on one of those radio stations they have in game. And there's this one guy. He's like an outdoorsman on a rural conservative radio station on AM or something. And he goes, "I like to go out into nature and kill beavers with my bare hands. I do not like the animals which fashion themselves as engineers." You just made me think of that line. Your beavers architects. You know?
My life has been deprived.
Listeners, I am high. Just so you know, I'm especially voluble today because I smoked a legal joint, and some of it.
Some of it was legal, some of it wasn't. What?
No, well, I had some of the joint. I didn't have the whole fucking thing. I'd be on Mars right now.
Yeah.
I'd be scratching myself on Mars, on the surface of Mars.
It's legal now in Massachusetts.
Say again? Sorry.
It's legal in Massachusetts now. Is that a new thing, or is that something that's been going on for a while?
Relatively new, within the last 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't because I know a bunch of states became legal in the election, right? Or a few of them. I can't recall which ones. There was a bunch of things there was a little thing going on during the election that I was a little bit preoccupied with, and whether or not which states were getting marijuana, legal. But so it's really good to see you. It's been a month, and the reason why it's been so long is kind of because of this book, actually. This book is kind of the reason why. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. Shall we get into it?
Let's get into it, babe.
Shall we pose?
Just pose.
Okay. Okay. Now, I got my Prezi. Hope it's not littered with incorrect words. This is a listener request again from our buddy Sarthak Sharma. So thank you very much for this shout out. Next time, maybe a little bit shorter. life's busy, and it'd be nice if it was a little bit shorter of a text. But I really appreciate it. It's nice to get these suggestions, and I've read this book once before, so here is my preset. I'm gonna put a little bit of like maybe ER sounds in the background, something like that, a little ambiance if I can. Not now, post-production. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is considered a modern classic of English literature and has been included in several top 100 lists of most important, best beloved, and just simply the best English language books of the last century. The book has a following and an inspiration that is probably more to do with Jack Nicholson's rendition of the McMurphy, the book's titular character, in the 1970s film adaptation that took home like 5 Oscars than it does to the actual book itself. It also comes soaking in bong water, wrapped in the psychedelic chord riffs of the Grateful Dead, that also has less to do with the book and more to do with the man who wrote it, Ken Kesey. This book was written with my father in mind, or at least for fathers of my father's age, who rebelled against the conformity of the 1950s, and I can't think of a book, a 1960 book more. I can't think of a more 1960 book than this one. And it was written, just to be clear, in 1962. When I think of all the books written, this really kind of encapsulates that like era in a lot of ways. Kesey wrote it when he was 24. And it feels like that. I feel I should preface these intros with the explanation that we don't intend to give like a literary critique of these books or of the articles we read. We intend to try to critique them as writers, as how they are written. I read this book once in my teens, and I remember liking it, though I didn't remember much of it at all. The second time through was a different story. The beginning is a slog, and I feel bad saying that. I know it's a lot of readers' favorite book, and stuff I wrote at a comparable age to Kesey's is wholly unreadable. Not even close to being this good. But the exposition in this dialogue is juvenile. The believability of some of the key signposts, such as McMurphy being the only character to figure out Chief can hear, and within his first day on the ward to boot, is also juvenile. And frankly, the first 2/3 of the book are pretty boring. On this episode of Boozing Through Lit, damn it, Harding, I told you, I'm not up on this shop talk. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Did you finish it?
No. Did not.
How far did you get?
How about you?
I woke up at 5 this morning to get through the end, which is, I'm glad I did. The back third is good. It's entertaining.
Let me just ask you then.
Yeah.
Is Randall Patrick McMurphy, is he a hero? Is he worthy of the title of protagonist?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in the end he is, right? Like a lot of people leave the ward after him. He defeats Miss Ratchet. You know, but like it's almost a weird thing to ask because there's so many.
Doesn't he kind of tear a blouse open?
Yeah. Yes, he does. Yeah. And you see her womanly body at the end, and he strangles her, and she can't speak anymore at the end of it, and she's like reduced to writing on notepads, and she loses a lot of her power, and a lot of people leave, and Chief Bromden, don't knock everything over. Chief Bromden escapes, you know, and it's hard to talk about this book. And because of the narration, right? Like, because it is told from a supposedly mute and a guy who presents himself as mute and dumb, and he is telling us the story, most of it in the present tense, and then so we have to go through how he views everything, and he's not altogether sane. So how much we can, like, I think that allows the writer to get away with some of the issues I have with the book, in that, like, there's a lot of terrible exposition, like that one line I read. God damn it, Harding, stop it with the shop talk. Tell it to me straight. And the fact that McMurphy is a wholly unbelievable character, in my opinion. Like, he's too much of a cartoon. He's too.
He's madcap. Yeah, it's like there's something,
And
unreal about
Mhm.
his joie de vivre, as it were,
Yeah, and you could. I feel the writer's hand in a lot of the scenes where he's in the battle with Miss Ratchet, and Miss Ratchet has no humanity whatsoever. So it's, and I get, like, there's a lot of symbolism and there's a lot of metaphor going on, and it's about society's controlling aspects on us, but that stuff just, especially in the beginning, just kind of grates and kind of keeps me out of it. And it
You,
made it hard to read.
you can see from reading Nurse Ratchet's parts in the novel, though, like how perfect Louise Fletcher was in the movie as Nurse Ratchet. Like, you see why she got an Academy Award. It's just most of her facial characterizations are just uncannily austere. Like, no empathy, almost like a godlike otherness to her face, like how a god would be if it was in flesh around these sort of perceived degenerates and crazy people and stuff. Like, this kind of detachment that's almost otherworldly. Just perfect casting. It's
Yeah.
no accident she got the Academy Award for that
Well,
performance.
I don't remember. I think I saw the movie long ago. But the one thing I noticed about this book, and I'm glad you brought up the movie, it feels like it should have been a movie and not a book.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the dialogue, I'm like, this might work in film, but it doesn't work to me
Well, and
reading
also
it.
you can have a greater appreciation, I did anyway, of how good Quentin Tarantino is at writing dialogue, just in general. I mean, Tarantino's dialogue in the worst of his movies is better than all the dialogue in this book.
Yeah.
It's just so forced, a lot of it. It's weird. It was a slog. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It was too badly written. It
How
was
far
too
did
weird.
you get? How far did you
Oh,
get?
I didn't even break the first third. I didn't even get to. Oh,
The beginning, the beginning has like 5 starts to it too, which is odd. And
horrendous. People could just, you know what it is though? It's probably me. Like, we don't, people could read back then. They had better attention spans than we do now. My phone doesn't fucking let up on it. It's oppressive. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, my job doesn't let up on me. We have to work all the time now. We have to be on call all the goddamn time. It's just, there used to be more of a greater separation of personal life and occupational life back then.
Sure.
And there were less distractions. So I get it. It's certainly not as much of a slog as, let's say, William Makepeace Thackeray's Vanity Fair, or even some novels by the great Dickens that take a long ass time to get going.
Yeah.
Dostoevsky's The Idiot too is wearisome at first. It's
hard. It's hard.
It's like 70 pages on a train. It's like, Jesus Christ. Whatever it is. I love Dostoevsky, and it's very hard to read The Idiot cover to cover. Very hard.
There's all these characters with 1,000 different names, and you're trying to. Who's this dude again? What is this? Yeah, no, it's
one guy reads a poem for like 50 pages as he's dying. Reading a poem as he's dying. It's like, Jesus, and no one's listening to him. They're like making fun of him, and it's awful. It's like 50 pages of hell. But it's not. In other words, there's better dialogue written in movies than there is in this book.
It could have been better, but the thing is, it is from the point of view of this, like, 7-foot man, half Native American, who pretends to be dumb and mute, which Kesey, I mean, he was 24. Kesey was writing this book on, like, easy mode, in a way, right? Like, if you were going to pick a narrator to tell a story in first person, deaf and dumb, who's always allowed to access to any room, anytime, and nobody cares what they say around him, right? Like it's not. I mean, I'm not belittling it because it is a good device, but it is not you could have picked a harder narration to tell the story. And I'm not saying necessarily you should, because writing's hard to begin with. But I'm just pointing it out that it's kind of like writing on easy mode. He didn't pick a harder way to tell this story, which I thought was, noteworthy. Maybe you disagree. I don't know.
Why was McMurphy in there in the first place? In the loony bin.
Okay. Oh, he was there because he kind of
What kind?
he
Yeah.
was on a work farm, right?
Mhm.
And he kind of got himself transferred to the loony bin because he thought it would be easier. And he tells them he tells the men that, like, oh, well, yeah, I heard that you guys have money and I'm gonna fleece you guys, and I was done fleecing those guys, sort of thing. That was his attitude. But the reason why he went to jail is because he slept with like a 13-year-old.
Oh,
And he got into a fight. And he's like, there is a lot of issues with this. Is kind of a sexist and racist book in a way. And I don't know if she's 13, but he says, I didn't know her age. Like, the book kind of defends the action in a way, saying that he didn't know her age and that the girl wanted him more than he wanted her. And he jokes about wanting to be in the loony bin just to keep her away from him. But she's a minor. And he got into some sort of fight or whatever. And like, it's not, and I was curious about that because it doesn't play as well now as maybe it would back then. Now you're kind of like, boy.
Choosing to make a guy who slept with a 13-year-old, a full adult who slept with a 13-year-old as your protagonist. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Well, if you did it nowadays, it'd be some kind of comeuppance for him for it,
Maybe she was older. Like, I don't know if she was 13, but I remember she was a minor. And he says that she looks older. And it's just kind of like, this is also around, like, when did Nabokov come out, right?
Oh, I know.
So
Nabokov, 50s and 60s.
Yeah, same as this, right? So this is the same age. But the way they brush this off is not like it's the way, like, we looked at crime and we looked at these issues differently back then, I suppose. I don't know. I wasn't there. I mean, probably not even not that long ago. We took it as a joke, statutory rape. So yeah, that's why he's in there. And we just keep going. And women in this book are treated as like the prostitutes, or or they are the part of the machine that keeps you down. And the only women that has really anything other than that is this woman they keep calling the Jap nurse, who comes in at the end of the book. And excuse my for being, but she's like kind and lovely. And at one point, I even write it down. She says, hold on, this fucking computer. I don't want that to happen. Can you hear me all right? We're back. Yeah, so back. Stupid computer. So what happens thank you. And so the women are either these whores or treated as such, or parts of the machine. And the book is about male masculinity a lot of the time. My hot take of the episode is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is the 1960s Fight Club. It's all about the same issues, about, the systems of the control that keep us down. It's about men being men and finding their masculinity again. They always talk about, getting bigger, like, you got to be big, you got to be a man. And at the end, he says, we're no longer mice, or whatever it is. We're no longer bunnies, we're men. That's what McMurphy gave to us. He gave us our manhood back. And there's a lot of similar themes between the two books in that has to do with mental illness, for one. It has to do with issues of societal control that keeps us, in line. And if you don't fit these systems, you are, outsiders. And it deals with femininity and masculinity kind of in similar ways. So that's my literary essay of the episode.
So do you think it's a good book?
No, not really. It gets better, but like, it's way too juvenile in a lot of ways. The fact that it really pissed me off. So at the end of the first chapter, and it doesn't take its setting seriously, and the fact that um, McMurphy on his first day on the ward, they're lying in bed together, and the chapter ends with him going, "Huh, I thought you couldn't hear, Brom Chief." And like he's on the ward for one day. No one else has picked up on the fact that this guy's been lying about not hearing and not being able to speak for 20 years. And this one McMurphy guy comes on and picks it up. Like that was just a little hackneyed, a little like, and there's no other indication until the end that maybe somebody else might hear him, but that's after he starts speaking and obviously communicating with people. And it's not literature in the way that The Great Gatsby is literature. It's a piece of its time, though. It very, very much is a book of the 1960s. It's iconic in that way. Like you couldn't, the way that they, their hijinks. And it's like there's this aspect of, even though MASH was made later, like this aspect of MASH in it. Where like there's these guys in uniforms, they're crazy, they're going out, they're stealing boats, they're getting hookers and, trying to get one over the man. There's this like catch-22 humor to it. It's very much of its time, but it's not a good book. It's not up there. Like it's not on my bookshelf in heaven. Stupid. Stupid. But yeah,
Well,
it's so
well, like you take, another book written a little later, 10 years later, but Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, Hunter S. Thompson, and it's all over the place, right? It's completely disjointed, but it's amazing.
It's better, yeah.
I mean, it's so he has such a grasp of the poetry of the language. And his metaphors are rich and interesting and effective, and he has this uncanny ability to make you laugh while you're in awe at the same time. He has his writing is so fucking good that even though it's all over the goddamn place, you first of all there is a message you can draw from it, right? But it's even though it is confusing at times, it's great. It just depends. Yeah, and Ken Kesey was 24. Not it's 24. I mean, it's amazing. This is an amazing work for a 24-year-old. I think even
yeah. And he made this afterwards, right? Which is supposed to be really good. I haven't read it. Sometimes a Great Notion. Which is
I've been wanting to read that. I've been wanting to read that. I'm having the bad habit of reading books I've already read, which is great maybe for that. But why am I not reading new ones? Why not? I don't know why.
It's a commitment, right? Time. You want to make sure what you read is worth like enjoyable. Maybe like picking up this again. It wasn't. I would have put it down if it wasn't for our podcast necessarily. And there's a lot of religious imagery in it too. Like there's a reason why it's McMurphy and his 12 merry men at the right, and he dies, and he comes back 3 weeks later after they lobotomize him in like 3 days, and there's a Judas character in it, the one that kind of gives him out at the end, which is like it's not fully that way, but it's written to evoke those ideas. He is their savior. He gave them. So that's not in defense of the book. That's just commenting on stuff I noticed. I don't know. It's not. What had you heard about this book before we read it?
I really hadn't heard much. I just, I heard that Ken Kesey was apparently not happy with the movie. He felt he felt certain things that he had done that should have translated onto the screen did not. But that's kind of common, right? I don't know how many writers are satisfied with what is put on screen. I'm not sure. Unless they have a hand in making it, like Cormac McCarthy did with No Country for Old Men. But it's practically reads like the Coen brothers wrote it, and vice versa. You know what I mean? It's so they had a similar view of West Texas, I think.
Right.
The three of them. I don't know. I hadn't heard much. And I'm biased against books written in America, novels written in America after the war. It's not fair. It's just I don't typically. I don't know. When I was first coming into loving books, I gravitated toward obviously Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Faulkner, Sherwood Anderson,
Hmm.
Carson McCullers, and Frank Norris, people like that, or pre-war.
Hmm.
Uh, and I guess I just didn't find postmodernist literature very appealing. I don't know if this is an example of postmodernism, though. One who flew over the cuckoo's nest. It's not really
No,
a modernist, late modernist, or something like that. But no, I hadn't heard much about it. How about you?
I
I
just
mean,
knew
when did you first read it, and why? What compelled you?
high school. Probably just
Oh,
because of like the o- the
on
attitude
your
of
own, it wasn't part of the curriculum.
yeah, it was just
Oh,
me. Like
neat.
I was trying to pick up, I was like a illiterate hockey player, and I knew of this book, and I knew they made a movie of it, so it's got to be good. And I picked it up, and I remember liking it. But I also wasn't a very good reader then. I probably skipped a bunch of it or didn't understand it. Like the fog scenes. I can't imagine myself reading those fog scenes. There's scenes in the book where like Bromden talks about fog taking over and seeing the machinery and all this kind of stuff, and I didn't like it now, and probably back then I probably couldn't focus long enough to get it straight, you know? Because it's not. I don't know.
Joan Didion made an interesting observation about the boomer generation.
Mm.
She wrote it actually quite early. It was in Slouching Toward Bethlehem, which is one of her earliest nonfiction works, or one of her
Mm.
early journalistic pieces, if you will. So we're talking 1968, I think, when she wrote it or published it. And she said that this generation had rejected the game before anyone had taught them the rules. And I think that's really interesting.
Mm.
Really interesting. What compelled the 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old members of a generation to run away to San Francisco? Just run away to San Francisco. What compelled them to leave Laredo and Tulsa and
Mm. Boise.
Canton, Boise? What compelled them all to just leave and go to San Francisco, or leave and go to New Orleans, or leave and go to Austin? What compelled them all to do that? It's this idea that perhaps their parents did a bad job of raising them, telling them the game. Could be.
It's interesting.
I don't want to cook and clean. Fuck that. I don't want
Uh-huh.
to cook and clean. But there's something about cooking and cleaning that everyone should know about. It's interesting.
Well,
It's like,
this is the generation that where cities started to grow too, right? Like farming,
oh,
industrialization.
they started to decline.
Yeah.
This period. They started a serious decline. This is the rise of the suburbs. This time
That's
period.
sorry. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm trying to
City centers are rotting from the inside, and around this
Mhm.
time.
Okay.
And that's the causes for that are manifold.
Uh-huh.
But it's just weird. It's this very weird thing to have the young people full of despair enough where they could not love home. Many of them, not all of them, of course.
Mm.
But
I'm trying to wrap my head. I'm thinking I read something recently that was touching on this issue,
mhm.
and I just can't. Uh, I can't put my finger on. Maybe it had something to do with Biden. I was reading it. It's about these people are probably the children of. They're the silent generation. They're the lucky few. They're the ones that were born into a plethora of jobs that they could stay at forever if they chose to. Or maybe
Yeah.
those are their parents. To be a smarter man than me would be a gift.
I mean, in hindsight, we can see that the white baby boomers are probably the most privileged people to ever live. ever. As a group, it's I they didn't know it then. How do you know? You can't have that kind of perspective then. I'm sure folks back then thought that the United States would just continue to enfranchise more of its people and have meaningful jobs for more of its people, jobs they could retire on, jobs they could be secure in, and we just keep continuing on in that trend. That's probably what the perspective was back then. So they probably didn't even know how good they had it.
Right.
But respect tells us that they had it better than anyone else, even us, and certainly Generation Y kids and stuff like that, who really aren't. Many of them cannot even look forward to a career, even if they're qualified for one.
That's. I think that because of where we are, these books written in this time period are all going to have this veneer of like, why are you complaining? Like, what's so bad?
Honestly, that's how I feel about 2020. It's like, I want to say to some people, like, I get it. It sucks. This is very bad that you can't go to a fucking Kenny Chesney concert. It's terrible. I get it. But the electricity's still on. Like, electricity's still on. There's still food. The supply chains are open. Like, what are we... It's bad compared to what it was before, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not capital B bad. It's not fucking 1994 Rwanda bad. It's not 1918 bad. It's what I mean? Like, this bad.
How much of the world
Stalin
just normally
hero.
lives without these things, and just how much of the world normally lives without these things and is constantly fearful of being sick?
I know. Well, a good deal.
Yeah.
A good deal. A lot more than we would care to think about.
And hopefully this will give us all compassion and want to help out our fellow brothers and sisters.
It already has. I mean, it already has. So many businesses in America, especially restaurants, are surviving because their patrons are tipping way more than they normally did. There's private charities that are organized, GoFundMe things. I mean, people are giving to one another in this time. Maybe it's going underreported. You could argue that, but it's not catastrophic. It's not for people who get it. It is. So I'm not saying that there's nothing bad going on. Of course there is, but I just wish people could realize that this is fucking life. This shit happens. This shit happens. In fact, it happens far more than we'd be comfortable admitting. God's sake, the electricity's still on. God, be grateful. I don't know.
Infrastructure still works. There's still, yeah.
I can't go to a Carrie Underwood concert. Oh, boo fucking who? Grow the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, really?
Have you heard people complain about Carrie?
I can't have a wedding. Gives a fuck. You're gonna be divorced in 20 years anyway. Gives a fuck. Statistically.
That does irk me. I mean, I feel like I can't.
There was a wedding in Ohio.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't have a wedding. I never wanted a wedding. So for me to be like, dude, don't have a wedding, is kind of like saying, like, I already think the party is kind of silly and a little self-centered. So, let's carry on.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm trying to be diplomatic, Brett. I'm trying to be diplomatic. But yeah.
We're on our own podcast. See what the hell you want. We can't get fired. We're our own bosses. Say it.
Dude, you don't know what the anxiety I have. I want to find myself all the time. But yeah, weddings are super weird.
Well, there's that one in Ohio. They had like 83 people in attendance, and like a third of them have COVID. It's like, Jesus Christ, of course.
We can joke about it, but it's also really sad. It's really, really sad. But yeah, it's like those gender reveal parties that started forest fires that scorched half of California.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I know. Well, it's just a party. I can't have a party. What? This is America. I can't throw a fucking cigarette in the brush? What? How was I supposed to know?
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen,
that's a crazy story for a grandkid, isn't it? The guy started that fire.
Yeah.
He's telling his grandkid, he's showing him old footage. Hey, look, see that? I started that.
or you're out for a walk with your grandkind across this ashen, barren land. And Dad, what used to be there? Well, son, that used to be rolling fields of like vineyards and luscious fields. But somebody wanted to shoot a firework off to know what genitalia their kid had. So now we have this. Enjoy. That's been amazing. You lived in strange times, Pa. Yes, we did. We did indeed. That's how they talk in California, right?
Paul, that there's a scorched landscape. Jesus Christ. All right, let's sign off quick before we alienate people.
Yeah, and I got to go get to the writing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Boozing. Follow us, like us, tweet us, email us at boozingthroughlit@gmail.com. Next week we got on the docket Nettle. Let me get my mask out of the way. Nettle by Joy Williams. We'll see you about next week. Hopefully next week. Until then, I'm Darryl. He's Brett. We're boozing. Back at ya. Keep scribbling.